Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now, an ongoing side project I run here where I look at games of yesteryear, 10 years plus removed actually, and where possible I line it up with a sale. Today we're having a look at Batman Arkham City, Game of the Year edition I guess. This is the one that's on Steam. This released all the way back in 2012 and currently it's going for $5. So money well spent. Now if you're a person who lived under a rock you may have missed this, but having said that, this younger audience comes along every now and then that just weren't around at that time. This game's an absolute banger and a cornerstone of modern gaming. A must play is an understatement. It's part of that original Arkham trilogy, or depends how you want to see it, Arkham Origins. 3.5 games, I suppose. And then you've got all sorts of stuff like Gotham Knights. I need to go back to Gotham Knights. I don't recall hating it. That was right when it was in vogue to hate it on some sort of principle, but my goodness, can't forget Suicide Squad as well. Well, look, we can always stay with the classics. So this is the sequel in the trilogy, and like any good second movie, second game, or what have you, it takes what was established in Arkham Asylum and it builds upon it in just about every way and eclipses it in most. It's going to be long regarded as the best of the trilogy. Now, I find it difficult to buy into that, and I'm not trying to be edgy or off pace. And while I acknowledge, a good sequel that many people see as better, Empire Strikes Back, right? Dark Knight is another thought. Even Aliens. Like, I love all of these things, but they're nothing if the first game didn't exist to lay the groundwork. And there's a lot to be said about origin stories and setups. Your project becomes dedicated to said setup. Arkham Asylum kind of skirted that a little bit. It went on with a Batman that was already established, but smartly it kept it contained to that asylum, right? It was almost a Resident Evil mansion in a way, a pretty limited play space, but a very, very clever first outing, and they nailed that bite of the pie. Arkham City scales it up to a suburb-size playground in the titular Arkham City. It's not the full-fledged Gotham City, it's a sort of, a suburb within that area that in this universe has been co-opted, repurposed as a all-purpose district for imprisoning people. And the game has a very high-stakes, ominous opening with Bruce Wayne being captured by the front-and-center villain Hugo Strange, who's pretty unknown to most, but he does make his splash as one of the more, intellectual heroes. Calm and cool, having Bruce Wayne, not Batman, locked up, but saying straight to his face that he knows his identity and actually holding it over him and lording it over him as a behave or else kind of proposition. Anyway, Hugo Strange inexplicably has exploded onto the scene and he's been put in charge of Arkham City as the administrator, and he is going absolutely carte blanche, locking up political prisoners. The game makes a pretty big deal about that. Not only is Bruce Wayne captured in the opening and locked up, but guys that were part of the security team or helped build Arkham City. Everyone ends up in the can eventually. It's a really cool setup, and like I said, it hits the ground running. In a way, it expects, prior reading. You could totally go into this as your first Arkham game, but I think you'd be cheating yourself out of a true experience, a curve that you could follow. You should start with Arkham Asylum, through City, and then into Arkham Knight, which I'm sure we'll get around to on the next sale talking about. And while Hugo Strange is the main big bad guy, at least presenting in the beginning of this game, at its heart, this is still a continuation of a Batman Joker trilogy. That is the real heart of the Batman Arkham games, and you may not immediately realize it. You'll know it by the time you finish this game, because it has one hell of a banger of a twist ending that is still quite satisfying, and it dovetails in perfectly into the third kind of finale that rounds out the trilogy. Anyway, the middle child, but in the eyes of many, the best of the lot. It still looks beautiful, man. It still holds up incredibly well. The flawless free flow combat, or whatever it is that they call it, is so satisfying. I would have played it with thumbsticks back in the day on console, and it works on mouse and keyboard arguably better, but that could just be my bias to mouse and keyboard. At its heart, it's pretty much left click to punch and right click to counter. The enemies will do this little little lightning bolt telegraph over their head. After you build up the combo to X amount, you'll be able to do like an execution, which puts you in an iframe, glorified, over the top, grabbing someone's leg and bending it the wrong way. It's grisly and it's gratuitous and it's excellent. And while that's something that you, again, in the first game, you kind of on-ramp into, they teach you, you upgrade into, you start with this out of the gate. Again, there's a little bit of the sequel expecting you to be approaching it as a sequel. Anyway, like I said, I've just dipped back in to check it out, do a bit of B-roll, and yeah, Batman ends up thrown into the slammer, but very quickly breaks out and, well, I suppose I should say Bruce Wayne, gets his suit delivered and then starts sniffing around the mystery of what's going on inside Arkham City. Why is Hugo Strange here? What's going on with the Joker's illness? It's really good. Some new threads of intrigue, but also some rewarding stuff that carries over from the previous game. This is also interlaced with the Catwoman side stuff, DLC. It's been that long, I think a lot of people have forgotten. And while these days it's becoming very in vogue to be, oh my god, you got to be careful with throwing this around, but people are becoming very Karen about their games. Don't get me wrong, I think some of the pearl clutching and pushback against a lot of modern AAA is valid and it's kind of important to happen. But some of these people that make it their trade, their bread and butter, their entire personality to just hate a thing and wish it would burn down, I feel like you could hold a mirror up against them and show them that they've become what they hate. Again, Karens, but on the other side. The reason for mentioning that is, while I really like the Catwoman DLC, I still remember when it came out and it didn't really make huge waves in that it was pay-gated story content that's woven into the main story. I think most people honestly just got it, right? We weren't quite at that outrage level. The story will stand alone without the Catwoman stuff, and I would almost argue, as cool as it is because it builds out that wider world, you get to see more of the Bat family in this, and even saying that feels a bit spoilery because you didn't necessarily know that going into this game, but not just the play space being built out, it's also, like I said, the characters, both friend and foe. But the Catwoman stuff is really complimentary and really welcome. But it is funny seeing it through a lens where I remember when it was a soft controversy that you had pay-gated single-player content. And my point for pointing out how times have changed, if they tried to do this with a modern game, in fact, they wouldn't try to do this with a game these days. That would just be outrageously unreasonable. A lot can change in 10 years. Anyway, my point with the Catwoman stuff, it's cool, but you can see where it actually interrupts the designed flow of the core game. They have a pre-intro to the intro. The intro to this game, white screen into Strange lecturing you in first person, is actually quite epic. It's one of the best starts to any game ever. And I would say it's a little bit disrupted by this weird pre-intro Catwoman stuff. But anyway, we'll see. People probably won't like me saying even that because this game can do no harm. But I remember when it was paid single-player story DLC, the cardinal sin by modern standards. And something else probably worth pointing out, I love the soundtrack in, well, a lot of Batman stuff. As much as I love even, Nolan, because there is some mad overlap between this and the Nolan series. Who's aping who, etc., right? Well, a lot of themes, and the soundtrack shares a lot of, you could probably say primal stuff, to the point where I think people assume that that's how a Batman soundtrack has to be done. However, The Batman, the Robin Pattinson movie, which I have a real soft spot for, kind of does something different again with the soundtrack, though it's still got that gloomy melancholy to it. Anyway, what I'm saying is that this soundtrack is wonderful and operatic, but also quite gothic. And when you come to the Catwoman parts, they do a really good job of weaving in her own themed soundtrack. It's kind of finger plucking on strings, on violins, almost like I don't know how you would operatically represent a spider is the first thing that comes to mind, but a cat skulking around, that kind of makes sense as well. And Again, to mention the Robert Pattinson soundtrack, they do a same sort of thing, weaving the Catwoman theme together with the Batman theme. It's cool to see that all those years later, but it was here, front and center, you know, a decade plus ago. On Catwoman, she has a totally different kit and totally different mobility, and it's cool, like, well, totally different. Let's say like a twist on the Batman kit. She's a variant of Batman, and it's really cool to have that kind of shake it up and change it up a little bit. Anyway, like I said, it's a quick video just to pop in and shout out bangers from the past. The whole package is included anyway, so my ruminating on DLC from release is more just an old man talking about the past, retroactively, right? In the current package that you can pick up, it's all there for a couple of bucks and it's all threaded together cleanly as it was intended at least. But yeah, it really holds up, man. And the story intrigue's got me going because I remember bits and I've forgotten bits, and it kind of makes me want to just go through the whole thing again, all three of them, to be honest. We did cover the first one not that long ago, so you can dig that out as well. And I guess we'll cover the third one at some point in the future. Anyway, Batman Arkham City. In the eyes of many, the best one of the lot. For my money, it's just a great continuation of one of the best trilogies in video gaming. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.